If you were to go in search of a vampire, this would be where you'd start, wouldn't you? The cemetery. I mean, after all, they are the eternally undead who rise from their graves at dusk to prey on the blood of the living. That's ridiculous, isn't it? I mean, they're just the creatures of mythology and legend, and they exist in books and movies. Or do they? Vampires first arose from the vault of legend 500 years ago, but author Bram Stoker's Bloodsucker has the biggest stake in all-time popularity.
I am Dracula.
Dracula has been kept alive in our imaginations as over the years the tale evolved from crypt to screen, horrifying audiences worldwide.
Yes.
The movies took the monster and made him into a sexual creature whose erotic blood-sucking ritual turned on fans even as it made their blood run cold. In the early 80s, a Gothic cult got their teeth into the legend, and vampires became the lifeblood of their music, Gothic rock.
Vampires? Yeah, well, it's all got to do with the Gothic thing, you see. We read lots of literature by Edgar Allan Poe and H.P. Lovecraft, and we love watching vampire films. It's got to do with the Gothic thing.
But what is it about vampires that appeal to you?
The way they dress.
And the way they act?
Oh, well, I don't know about that.
And looking for it, we would look amongst the Gothic movement, do you think? We were looking for vampires.
It'd be the best place to look, yeah. But, I mean, not all Goths are vampires, and not all vampires are Goths. You have to understand that. It's a subculture, just like anything else that all the young people are involved in. You used to get the punks and the skinheads, and, you know, now you've got the techno-ravers, and somewhere in between, you get the Goths.
I began my search for a modern-day vampire at a Gothic club where young bloods gather to worship the music and keep the cult alive.
It's essentially a music-driven thing. We follow a certain kind of music. Gothic music or dark wave or whatever you want to call it. I'd call it dark romantic. It's got a lot of passion in it. It can be a bit depressing sometimes. In fact, most of the time. It's very, very sad, and but not all of it, though.
What do you guys think of this lot?
What are they? They trendies. Wait, hang on. I don't really mind them. Hey, I don't mind them.
And are these guys the epitome of uncool to you?
We eat people like this for breakfast. We're underground alternative Goths.
Yeah. What kind of music do you do?
What's that?
Gothic music.
What do you do? Just like walk around?
No, we
Don't worry,
this conversation's going over there.
Let's just get back to the vampires.
Yeah.
Which of the vampire movies, for instance, encapsulate for you the whole spirit of the movement?
Well, for me, a lot of the old vampire films. You know, the old Dracula with Bela Lugosi and the new one, Bram Stoker's Dracula, Interview with the Vampire, all those. You know, the imagery and the ideology, that's what we enjoy.
As far as I understand it, the mythology about coping with loss, unable to deal with the pain of life. Would you agree that...
It is a form of escape. I find for myself especially, when I've had a rough time or a rough day at work or something, I get dressed up and I go out. So I go out to see my friends and to listen to the music.
Okay, so what you emulate then are creatures of history, mythology, the films,
mythology,
the books.
Yeah, films,
but
the books.
You, to your knowledge, have never met a living vampire.
No. And have you ever met, the Easter Bunny or anything like that?
Well, the Easter Bunny is a harmless little fellow, but it's a long hop to the sinister creatures of the night into which these young people transform themselves.
I wish I was dead. I'm dead. That doesn't help much.
A little harmless fun outside the club? Or is it more than just a game? I learned that the Gothic movement has well-defined ranks. There are those who simply dress up to go out. They are called gummy goths, and those that live the fantasy. I was led to a group of serious devotees whose jovial flat reflected their dark commitment to the cult.
You'll ask people that they're sort of in the same culture what, you know, their definition is of Gothic. It's very hard to actually, you know, define it.
But it's music-driven.
Very much, yeah. Yeah, very, very much. I mean, it's the same as all other cultures. I mean, it's the same with punk. You ask a punk, you know, what music do you listen to before looking at his Mohican or anything like that? You'll ask a metalhead about, you know. I mean, I think the sort of music and the people that you listen to, I mean, obviously you find some kind of role model in it. We sort of see vampires and sort of characters like that
as beautiful,
as romantic. That is basically, if I can get back to your first question, I think Goth is basically romanticism.
For me personally, the whole scene or the culture, if you want to call it that, it's so romantic and it's so beautiful and it's so misunderstood as well.
And if, as you mentioned earlier, you consider vampires as being the epitome of mystery and eroticism and beauty, how far are you prepared to go to emulate them?
We just sort of...
We enjoy the literature.
We enjoy the literature, and that's probably, if you ask me questions, like in an interview like this, then the closest thing for you to realize what I'm all about or to understand is to bring a creature like the vampire in. I mean, you get people that's like full-on sort of vampire or blood cultists. We just came back from the UK and it's very, very big over there. But
have you ever tried it? Tried drinking blood? I'm going to take that as a yes.
The thing is, yeah, on camera it's a bit strange. We sort of experimented with it, but it was very erotic, sort of, if I can say it on camera, it was sort of a foreplay sort of thing. It was just between the two of us. But that's sort of obviously personal, so we wouldn't get into that. But yes, I think, you know, between our friends as well, we did it, we tried it.
I don't expect you or anybody else to really to understand that, because I don't know what is probably in your mind right now. You're probably thinking that we're these blood-drinking creatures.
It was a personal thing, that's all I can say, and we experimented and we did it, and I think a lot of people, like other people will use sort of cocaine or bungee jump or something like that. We just did that, you know. It's not a strange thing as far as I'm concerned.
So you're not party to the myth that you can't go out in the middle of the day and you resist water and you work near a church?
No, not at all.
That's not part of your...
Exist, we love churches and crucifixes and garlic.
Love garlic, yeah.
These young Goths also happen to love graveyards. This is where you'll find them of an evening.
Probably blonde.
Well, I mean,
I would think it's natural. I mean, most people are
They gather as the sun sets and spend the night picnicking on the souls of the dead.
It's not like we go out at night and rob graves.
We go to the cemetery because it's peaceful, it's romantic, it's clean, and it's safe.
Not disrespectful to bop on someone's grave.
No. It's nothing about that. I mean, I've got the utmost respect for them.
And I suspect they hang around here in the grim hope that they may meet one of the undead.
But I mean, do you believe that there have ever been vampires in the 20th century, for instance?
Well, in this book, there's a little story here. Apparently in the Highgate Cemetery in London, they had what people were describing as a vampire. You know, various people had claimed seeing it, and they'd found a lot of dead animals lying around the cemetery. The vampire at Highgate Cemetery, there is. And Highgate Cemetery is just around the corner from Carfax Abbey, which, according to the story, is where Count Dracula bought his house in London.
Oh.
Yes. You see over here, here's a picture of it. It had a little vampire warning on the gate. This is like one of the oldest cemeteries in London. A lot of the Goths go there and do their little thing, you know.
The vampire cult is very much alive today, and there's a disturbing body of evidence to prove it. Vivid and chilling accounts of vampirism as a fetish have shocked people all over the world. The first case of vampiric serial killing was reported in the 1920s in Europe, when 24 young men were bitten to death. The killer later confessed to drinking their blood. Since the 60s, there have been more than 20 accounts of vampiric killings in Europe, Asia and America.
I fully believe in the vampire myth. I believe there are vampires
Not in a
around.
traditional vampire myth.
Exactly.
To date, vampirism in South Africa has not led to any violent crime, but interest in the movement is growing, and I was still hunting for a homegrown, modern-day bloodsucker.
Well, we have finally found someone to talk to who claims to be a vampire, not by the mythological or historical definition, obviously, but certainly by the contemporary one. That is, someone who regularly consumes human blood. This is our rendezvous point with a man who, for fairly obvious reasons, won't even give us his name. Do you remember the first time you sucked blood?
Yes, I remember the first time. A little bit strange to get used to at first, but it grows on you.
What prompted you the first time?
It was almost, how can I describe it, the craving.
Do you use teeth or do you have an instrument that you use to draw the blood?
Small shard of glass, usually. A razor blade.
Does the embrace happen as it does in the movies, on the jugular here, the neck, or on a wrist?
We don't puncture veins, they tend to bleed. We just puncture the skin slightly, but the wrist and the soft part of the shoulder, well, that's my personal preference.
How much would you say you draw?
Until you feel content.
Is that a cupful, a litre, 2 litres?
No.
Tell me about the initial craving. Was it sexually induced, or was it a taste that you were after?
Yeah, it was sexually induced. The taste comes afterwards.
Does the blood taste different person to person?
Oh yes. It's not just the taste of the blood that entices you, it's the act of actually drinking it. You feel powerful afterwards. And you feel content as well. I'd call it an eccentric passion.
Would you be prepared to show us your eccentric passion on camera?
Possibly later. Yes. We're protected by this wonderful little myth that says we don't exist, and we'd like to keep it that way.
So do we take these people seriously, or are they just youngsters playing at dress-up? Somebody with an opinion on the matter is Dr. Louise Olafia. She's a psychologist, and she has treated several people who call themselves vampires. So here we are in suburban Pretoria, and if she'll forgive the term, for an interview with the vampire shrink. Dr. Olafia, what is the psychologist's and psychiatrist's angle on vampirism? What is your understanding of it?
Well, we think that it's got a very strong human sexuality dimension, where they almost are not just satisfied by having sexual intercourse, but also suck the blood from each other. The whole intake of blood is an oral fixation. It is something that is a symptom of a serious underlying problem.
So should they be feared or pitied?
I think they should be helped.
But why is it coming to a head, so to speak, now? I mean, how many vampires are you seeing? And why are we reading these reports about vampirism suddenly?
Vampirism is a very up-and-coming thing in the States at the moment.
Why?
I think it's a sort of a cult thing. People latch onto these things and they feel safe within the group.
But this is not a group of flower power peace children. These are vampires. These people play with theirs and other people's bodily juices.
I prefer to be amongst our own sort of community, species.
But you like the whole business of being different, don't you? Did you just say stop playing with your food? The vampires we've come across seem to be almost exclusively young people. Why would that be?
Because it's a cult that is developing at the moment. Unfortunately, it's a very sad and very strange sort of cult. And I think young people often get into this without really thinking about it.
Where would one get one's blood if one were a vampire?
Rob a blood bank.
Does one drink it out of a cup or does one get it from one's friends?
From what I understand about it, it's more sensual to drink straight from the host.
3 of the patients I treated drank blood by self-mutilating. One other patient that I had was buying the blood, and getting hold of the blood and then drinking it.
It's all about feeding.
Feeding?
Yeah. You're drinking because you don't take anything else. You just need the blood, your hunger for the blood, you know.
For the blood is the life.
Yeah.
It's almost like inhaling the energy of the blood, getting that energy. And they feel weak and they feel that they would like to have that energy, almost the life force of the person.
But do you think it's controllable? Do these people actually just want to get caught up in it, or can they not help themselves?
At the beginning, they find that they can control it. But like any deviation, it becomes out of control.
A lot of these young people do seem to be out of control. I found one young vamp particularly disturbing in her views on her fetish. How long have you been practicing it?
Ever since I was a child, like sucking the blood from my cuts and grazes.
And where do you cut?
Usually my arms, people's arms.
Is it scarred? Yeah. May I see? Are you prepared to acknowledge that this might just be some sort of mental aberration, some psychological condition you had?
Yeah.
What do you think that condition is?
Emptiness.
The vampires of mythology are invariably sad creatures who are possessed. They're lonely, they try to escape the pain of life, they deal with separation from a loved one. Now, how closely do those mythological vampires approximate modern, real vampires?
Very closely in the sense of the psychological dimensions. The vampires of old, also in the mythology, have quite a lot of power. In the modern vampire comes across more in the sense of that I don't want to be nothing. I want to be a meaningful person. I want to change things in the world.
Plus, the old vampire is, of course, beautiful and highly sexually attractive.
Yes, the old vampire was quite sexy, just before the teeth came out.
Since evil seems to stalk in the shadow of vampires, I was wondering whether our young Goth's fascination with the undead was entirely innocent. Surely Satanism and the cult of the vampire are blood relations.
We do tend to be classified as being evil. But if you actually look at the true essence of the music and the scene and what we're involved in, it's not evil at all. It might have certain, it might look evil, it might sound evil, but, you know, it's about as far away from evil as you can get.
People don't really understand it. Like one of your questions, they probably think you're weirdo and, you know, you're into Satanism and, you know, stuff like that. But it's not like that at all. People don't understand it. They're very naive.
As far as the iconography is concerned, I see a lot of your cohorts wearing inverted crosses and things like that. Why go for that iconography?
I don't know. That must be for shock value, I'm sure.
In South Africa, people think if you wear black, you're a Satanist, and that's it.
It's
very narrow-minded.
Yeah, it's a very narrow-minded belief. It is, really. I mean, I'm happy with the person I am. I've gone through, like, basically everything, and this is what I chose, and I'm very, very happy with it.
Tell me how sinister I should interpret the death iconography, the death symbolism as being. Is it sinister?
No. Sinister is actually a very hard term to use, I think, because it's got a lot of negative connotations to it. I would rather say mysterious. Mystery. Mystery, romance, beauty.
Most of my idols are mysterious as far as I'm concerned. I think it comes with the way you dress and the way you look and the way you behave, obviously. I would like to be, yes. I would like to be considered mysterious.
Mysterious was putting it mildly. Phantasmagorical, bizarre, even goofy came to mind. But if nothing else, our devotees certainly have a flair for the theatrical. Or perhaps high drama is just